Okay, we're all back. All right, for the last 45 minutes, hour or so, we're gonna talk a bit deeper on how to convert your, I say website, but for the next time I do this, I'm gonna delete the word website because it's a bit of a legacy word because we could be talking about apps. We could be talking about other ways you're interacting with your customers. And a lot of these things we're gonna say can apply just as well to an app or a website. At the end of the day, a website is a web application. So a website is an app in truth as well. So I'm going to delete the word website in the future. So let's not get hung up on the word website. But these principles can apply to an app. It could apply to a paper form that you ask your customers to fill out, because we're going to talk about forms. So some of the stuff is somewhat universal, but we're going to speak about it in the world of website apps point of view. You heard about me already? What we're going to cover here. So hard versus soft elements. I'm going to get into these in detail, so I won't talk about it too much right now. On-site versus off-site considerations, principles to live by, metrics that matter, tools and references, some advanced techniques, and again, some Q&A. And just like the first one, if you have a question right now, just raise your hand. And there's time in the presentation for it, so go ahead. Soft versus hard elements. So this is a term I made up, so this is not an industry thing. So I just made it up for the context of this presentation. What I'm going to define as soft elements are things you may not have control over, and maybe market forces and external considerations. And hard elements are what we're going to focus on for this presentation. Those are the things that you can control. And those are the things we're going to talk about in more detail. So when I say soft, what do I mean? Do you have a strong brand? Do you have fair prices? So we can get into this stuff in your website, but let's say you have a terrible brand. No one trusts you. You can make your form and your website as brilliant as you want, but it's not going to matter. Or the improvements that you make here, and we're going to get into, are going to improve these, but we have to keep these variables stable. Because you cut your prices, your conversion rate is going to go up. But we have to keep these variables stable for the context of this presentation to talk about what you can control. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So the things we won't talk about is, do you have a strong brand? Do you have fair prices? Do you have a correct target market in your business? Do you have a good reputation? Do you have good customer service, etc.? And as I said in my first presentation, those are the things you're probably working on much better with Terry and Chandresh and just the whole Roger group. So those are the things they're going to help you answer much better than I will in this presentation. So we're going to keep this as a constant for the context of the presentation and get into these. So what are the hard elements we're going to talk about? How fast is your site? Does your site work on different devices? Is it attractive? Does it have popular payment methods? Is the site secure? That says SIT, but that should be site. Is your site secure, et cetera, et cetera? So we're going to get into those type of things. So off-site versus on-site. So we're going to focus on the off-site elements. Another consideration, we're going to focus on on-site. But off-site considerations, piggybacking on the first presentation, is your traffic targeted? What is your mix of traffic? What is your volume versus precision? What is your competition, market conditions, and seasonality? So if you're talking about conversion rate, which is where the magic happens, as they say, if you change your channel mix, that's going to change your conversion rate. Pretty much by definition, because social, for example, doesn't convert as well as direct paid search. Referral traffic generally converts the best because you're generally coming from a blog or a media site, which is establishing trust and social proof. So when I arrive on your site, I've already been pre-sold, warmed up, so the sales process is halfway done. So if you change your traffic source and who you're targeting, that inherently is going to change your conversion rate. So again, we have to keep these constant for the context of this conversation. And piggybacking on the question at the end, what channel converts best and how do I know which one converts best? You can look at each channel independently to see the conversion rate. So you want to look at your overall business and your overall website or app conversion, the amount of leads, the amount of contact us, whatever's relevant to you. But you also want to go to each channel because just that change of mix alone may spike your conversion rate or may drop it. And you say, whoa, what's going on? So you have to consider the traffic source mix. Volume versus precision. So as a general rule, the more traffic you get, the lower the conversion rate. And the lower the traffic, the higher the conversion rate. This is dramatically simplified. But if you want to grow, you can't just call up your friends and family. You have to grow and reach out to more people. And when all the people in your city have already bought your product, you have to go to your state or your province, and you have to go to other countries. And you have to keep growing and growing and growing. So big companies may have a conversion rate of a couple percent, but they're doing massive scale because their market is everybody. I just think of Amazon and Walmart and any other major retailer that's multinational, online stores, etc. Their conversion rates and their profit rates are actually extremely low. A few percent maybe on profit. But they're dealing with multi-billion dollar businesses that they can make out quite well. If you're a boutique shop, you might have high margins and you may have a very small segment because you're in a specialty space. So your conversion rate could be quite high. And if you want to grow, your conversion rate may drop, but your bottom line may grow because the volume supports it. So you have to balance out volume and precision in your considerations of your conversion rate and what your site's doing for you. Competition, so we're not going to consider your competition. We're going to keep that constant. Market conditions, we're not going to talk about it. Seasonality, again, some businesses, particularly Q4, Christmas, are going to spike, and we're not going to factor in seasonality in the context of this. Metrics and benchmarks, so these are the kind of the industry standard common benchmarks, and I think they're going to be relevant to most people in the room. The first one, the ones that matters, are conversion rates. And conversion rates means different things to different people. Some it means putting in a credit card, sending money. Some it means liking your page. Some it means sending you an email, contact us. Some it's filling out a newsletter request. And there are other variations, but that's the conversion. That's what's of value, and that's really what everything we're talking about is leading to. And for most people, they have primary and somewhat secondary conversions. So if you go to a site and you want to buy a product, that's the primary conversion. What are examples maybe of secondary conversions? Of a newsletter or something, definitely. Other things, contact us, sales requests. Can you have someone call me because I want to buy software? And they're not going to buy software unannounced because it's a custom product and it's expensive. So they need a salesperson to call them. Can I schedule a meeting? That would maybe be your primary conversion, in fact, in software. But if you're selling a product for $20 and it's a credit card, maybe your primary is the actual sale. So the primary and secondary considerations when it comes to conversion rates. More or less time on site. So if someone spends more time on your site, is it good? I see a yes. It could be no. Because your site is very confusing, and I can't find what I want. So I'm going to keep saying the C word, contextual. Contextual, contextual, contextual. So if your time on your site goes up, it could be great because I'm engaged and I like your products and I'm looking all around. It could be terrible because your site design is horrible and I have to keep looking around to find what I want. So there's no linear answers. And it's frustrating at times, and the client work, and I keep saying that, they get frustrated, but it is what it is. And if you want to be professional and go deep and make analysis, you have to understand the context. That's why, again, I asked Chandra to introduce me as a business consultant, because you have to talk about these things. You can't just say, oh, you had more time on site, that's great. No, maybe it's bad. It's all contextual. Viewing more or less pages, same thing. It could be good, it could be bad. Depends. Bounce rate, generally that's pretty much bad. Bounce rate is people who go on your site and they leave without visiting another page. Generally, you want that to be lower than higher. There have been cases where I work with clients who have an information page that answers a question. I'll give you an example. There was a retailer that sold clothes, and there was a common question of size conversions of European, American, and UK. Very common question. And there was a tremendous amount of search volume around that question. So we set up a page. We had organic reach on that page, as well as we ran paid campaigns to answer that question because the traffic was so cheap. When people went to that page, the bounce rate was 95% because they weren't in a buying mode. But when they went on that retailer, which was a well-known retailer in that geography, they said, oh, these guys are thought leaders. They answered the question. Great. Traffic was cheap. It was next to free. And we put a retargeting, to talk about advanced techniques, we put a retargeting pixel on their browser. So then they started seeing ads from that company after they answered that question. So this one, bounce rate is a bit more straightforward, that you want it to be lower than higher. But there are cases like that fair special use case that a high bounce rate is not necessarily bad. Does that make sense? More or less customer emails. So in this context, I'm talking about contact us or customer service. If you're getting more emails, it could be good, it could be bad. They keep asking the same question over and over and over. So maybe your site's not answering it for them. Maybe your FAQs doesn't exist or it's not well thought out. You're not adding to it as you learn more questions that people have. So that's more or less is better or worse. More or less customer phone calls, same vein. You may not want to receive many phone calls, particularly if they're repetitive. And the same thing with foot traffic. Foot traffic is good, but it could be bad depending on if you're not answering the question further up the chain, much cheaper on a website or an app or an email, as opposed to them coming to your store, not to purchase or spend, but to get a question answered or to deal with some customer service issue. The amateurs discuss tactics, the professionals discuss logistics. So Napoleon Bonaparte. So I read a lot of history, and Napoleon is someone I read a lot of, that European history, and he's a fascinating guy. I won't endorse what he did, but this was a quote that was attributed to him. So in the context of this quote, we're going to talk about principles, not so much which tool or where to click or what to do, principles of what makes the most sense. So less is mostly more. So the more you ask your customers, generally the less they're going to convert. And this is particularly relevant on forms, checkout, sign up, any information gathering place. Sometimes you may want to have a qualifier in your form. So you don't want to just have people contacting you willy-nilly because they're not your target market or they can't afford your product or whatever the case may be. So sometimes you may want to have a little more up front to just weed out the noise. But generally speaking, the more things you ask for up front, the worse it's going to be. And when you look at analytics for forms, it's pretty much, if you think of a funnel, it's pretty much the same way. Second question drops off from the first. The third drops off from the second. And it's just a linear process. With every question you ask, you have a drop off. So what least you can ask to get things done. So if it's contact us, people will say, where do you hear about me? What's your annual income of your business? What industry are you in? And I'm thinking, do you need to know all this? And I don't want to share this. We don't have a relationship yet. So why don't you just say name, email, and I'll call you tomorrow. That's it. That may be perfect form. One idiosyncrasy is people don't like to give their phone number, especially in America because telemarketing is a big thing. So they don't want to be called at dinner at their house or on their cell phone while they're having dinner. So phone number generally is a big drop-off. So less is more. So always think about less, less, less. Occam's razor is a phrase that you want to have as little as possible, but not too little. And you want to try to strike that balance. Every second counts. So faster is always better. So the faster your app, the faster your site, the better you're going to do. And this graph is showing every second your page loads, your abandonment goes up. And there are obviously practical limits. The greatest site in the world, people like Apple and stuff, they load it a few seconds, a couple seconds. So you're not going to beat them at their game. So you don't need, the internet's not out to get you, but you want to make sure your site's as fast as possible and your app is as fast as possible. And it's pretty much a linear process, and there's almost nowhere where slower is better. So unlike most things which are contextual, this is pretty linear. Faster is going to be better. When you think about speed, this is a bit more of a technical conversation, but you want to talk with your developer, your coder, on how your site's coded, are your images optimized, where is your site hosted, is it hosted on a shared platform, what they call a CDN, Content Delivery Network, is it only hosted in one place, where is the geography of most of your customers versus where you're being served of your site, are they caching it? Oh, I thought it was plugged in. Sorry about that. So yes, fast is always better, almost without exception. Device and browser response, and this is a massive issue, and it's become more so in the last few years. So is your site working on tablet, desktop, mobile, and to a lesser extent, PlayStations and iPods, and they have to be considered too. And again, it depends a bit more on your business. For if you're a gamer, your site showing up on a PlayStation may be critical. For most of us, it's not going to be. But for simple terms, you want to make sure it's showing up right on all devices. And in analytics, you can see how many people are coming from each device type. And you can also see the conversion rate and the interaction rate of all those devices. In simple terms, for most businesses, desktop is going to convert at the highest rate. Tablet's going to be somewhat behind, and then mobile's going to be in third place. If you're a mobile-focused business, or if you're maybe a hotel or business travelers is your market, maybe they're doing more things on the go. But in general terms, that's where it's going to be. As we talked about attribution on the channels, you can't just say, oh, I'm only going to focus on desktops, because that's where the people are converting. Mobile is great, kind of in the same vein as social, for awareness and for people checking in with you. And we all do it. We have 45 seconds free. We'll just go on the phone and look around. We're not going to buy, but we use that time to just browse. Also, again, a more advanced technique is their retargeting. So if you visit someone's site, they're putting a pixel on your device. That's retargeting to you as you go on Facebook and you browse around the web. I think we've all seen those ads, right? Have we all? You've been to someone's site and you see the ad from that company as you browse around. So a more advanced thing now is called cross-device marketing. So if I go on your site on my mobile device, when I use my computer, they know it's me because my email exists on both. So your mobile could be a great place to capture a marketing pool of retargeting people who are seeing it on the desktop and actually converting. So you can't just minimize the importance of mobile or tablet because desktop and laptop are actually driving all the revenue, because the other ones may be populating the pool of customers and leads. Social proof, this is critical, and if you read that book, again, The Science of Influence by Robert Cialdini, that's one of the topics, social proof. And as I spoke about principles, these are principles that existed thousands of years ago and will exist in the next thousands of years. So do you have testimonials on your site? Do you have trust seals? Do you prominently display your phone number? Some people use phone number as an indicator that you're a real business. And I can contact you, and it gives them a warm and fuzzy feeling, even though they will never use the phone number. But they know they can reach you if they have to, and you're not a fly-by-night shop or site that was just set up yesterday, depending on their brand and their awareness of you. Do you have a physical location? If you do, you can promote that more prominently on your site. Not that people will necessarily use the physical location, but the fact you have a physical location provides legitimacy and social proof. Transparent about us page. So you can tell your story about yourself or your business. You don't have to necessarily make it personal if your business is not personal in nature. It could be the story of the brand, not necessarily you as a person. And guarantees. You have any guarantees? These things are commonsensical, but there are ways on the web to display these things and to make them prominent. And we could have added to this list much further. But what are you doing on your site to give people social proof and trust and for them to convert? Paradox of Choice. This was another great book I had read, and I just took a snapshot of it. So beware of choice overload. It can make you question the decisions you make before you even make them. So this was a great book. This is a sociological book. And the last 50 years, particularly in Western countries, our choices have grown exponentially. And he had a great example in the book, salad dressing. 50 years ago, there was Thousand Island ranch vinegar. And now in the book, he showed a picture of shopping aisle. There's like 200. Gluten-free, light, blah, blah, blah. So the more choices you make, the more difficult your customers are going to find to convert on your site, and the more happy they're going to be about the purchase. So you want to make your site as light as possible, but as much information as necessary to make the purchase. So there's some balance in there. Does that make sense? I haven't had any questions yet. Is that the lunch still digesting? Or? Shopping cart. So this is where the action happens in most cases, particularly e-commerce sites. And if your site is about contact us or about sales leads, then you can just erase shopping cart and put in lead form or lead capture or contact us page. So this is where the conversion stuff really actually comes to life and becomes far more important, because once someone gets to this point, they get to a form, they get to a shopping cart, they get to a pay page, they get to a credit card input box. That's when they become very critical of you and their decision to purchase with you, as well as the things you do are much more heightened in sensitivity. Generally speaking, the shorter the shopping cart, the better. And this comes down to less is more. So the more fields you ask for, the more pages they have to go through. Like any funnel that ever existed, there's a big top and a small bottom, and the more layers, the more drop off. So the shorter the better. Only ask what you truly need. So just optional fields, just delete. Why ask if it's optional? Is it really necessary? And a lot of these things, particularly in sales leads and contact us forms, is you can just get the information and get all the details later. The most important thing is they contact you. So name, email, message, send. And then you come back to them and say, you know, just to make this proposal right, I need to know what industry are you in? What is your turnover? Where do you live? You ask that all up front, your not abandonment rate, but your conversion rate on the contact us is going to drop like a rock. Just get the first lead and then email them as a human to get all the information after, and you do much, much, much better. Use social proof here in the shopping cart. This is where people are putting down money and putting down their private information and their financials. So what seals can you use? What testimonials can you use? How many orders have you done before? How long have you been in the business? And there's also buyer's remorse, right? So you want to reinforce the message without being over the top, that they can trust you, they can buy from you. You have a guarantee, you have money back guarantee, free shipping, return, et cetera, whatever's contextual to you. Security matters. So this is somewhat a technical thing, but also a human thing. Do you have seals that say, you know, you have a trusted site by a trusted, you know, VeriSign, McAfee, other big companies that provide these trust seals on sites to say that you can pass through your information and it's secure, it's encrypted, no one's going to get it. And those things people trust. And a lot of these things put together are incremental. So each of these things may improve your conversion rate by 2.8%, or 6.1, or 1.0, but you're going to add them all up, right? And if you can grow your business by 10% or 20% or 30% by doing some data analysis and some data science, how much is it worth to you? So it's definitely something to consider. Reinforce guarantees and use mainstream payment options. No rocket science there, but use payment options that are relevant to your audience. Obviously all the major cards, PayPal, you know, if you're a Chinese audience, Union Bank, and whatever's relevant to your geography and your demographic. Other considerations. By the way, no questions, this is going to go fast, so add your questions in anytime you feel like it. Other considerations, make CTAs, call to action, stand out. So whatever you want people to do, you kind of want to hold their hand and lead them in that direction. You want to make the buttons clear, you want to have them contrasted to the background of the page. You know, some people get garish depending on your market. They have arrows pointing at the button. It depends on your market and your touch and feel. If you're a real corporate, clean business, then that's going to be out of place. If you're a real fun internet promoter or you're selling yourself or your brand, then maybe that's okay. So it just depends on the voice and character of your business. Avoid moving images. A lot of people do it. They have the carousels. But evolutionarily, and this is what the studies are based on, humans don't like things moving in their peripheral vision. Because when we lived on the plains, that was a threat. It could be a tiger coming. So you have to look. And you want to get rid of that threat. So you want to avoid carousels and things that are automatically moving in constant motion. As beautiful as they may seem, they really hurt conversion. They hurt people's perception of your site. And I don't know if you've done this, but if I'm working on my computer, maybe I have two monitors, or if I'm just working on one, and I'm maybe writing on a piece of paper, that carousel, I have to get rid of it in my peripheral vision. Does anyone feel that way? I see a yes. Okay. That's the human thing. That's a threat. Something moving in your environment, and you have to be so aware of it that it takes your attention away from what you're really doing. So avoid automatic moving carousels. Avoid cheesy stock images. People can see and smell stock images a mile away. And we've all probably seen the same stock image over and over and over. Maybe it's the first result on ThinkStock, Getty Images that people just always get when they type secretary or something. But they always make the rounds, so try to avoid stock images in general. Consider the fold. Does everyone know what the fold means? No? Okay. The fold is what you can see above your screen once you get onto a site or an app. And the fold is somewhat of a moving target because it depends on the device. So a bigger screen is going to have a bigger fold. So I have a 17-inch screen, I can see this much. 15-inch this much, 13-inch screen this much. And then when we take it to mobile, an iPhone, a big iPhone is going to show that much, a smaller one that much, Samsung that much. So, and again, tablets, different size tablets. There are ranges, but they're in a fairly narrow range. So you want to consider what people can see above the page as soon as they land, because that's what they're going to see. And you want them to click through, you want them to scroll down, you want them to do something, right? And you want to put that call to action or the next step to move them along and kind of hold their hand above the fold. So when they see it, they know what to do, they trust you right away, things of that nature. So the fold is very, very important. Create urgency, and I put in brackets where appropriate. You can abuse it, and it can become real cheesy and over the top. But where appropriate, you can use urgency, last minute deal, limited time offer. And as I said, these are principles that are not exclusive to the web. People have been doing that forever. So you can use that where appropriate. Live chat, again, if appropriate and managed. A lot of people put live chat on their site and they forget about it. And it just sits there, and it's much worse to have live chat to have no one there than not have it at all. When you click it and it says, oh, send a message, you feel deflated. You're like, oh, I'm just sending an email. Or if you click it and you don't get a response, it's much, much worse than not having it at all. If you didn't have live chat, I maybe wouldn't be aware of it. When you provide it and I want to use it, and I can't use it, or there's no one there, or it's slow, don't. And a lot of people don't think of a 24-hour cycle. What about if you're sleeping or your staff sleeping and you didn't program that widget to be removed? It's still there. So this might not be relevant to all of you, but if you can use live chat, be aware of it and manage it properly. Tools. So we spoke about Hotjar. That's a really cool tool. It's really inexpensive. I highly recommend almost all of you do it who are doing any type of traffic on your site. So you do heat maps, which are showing you where people click on your site in aggregate. They can aggregate thousands of sessions into one screenshot, and you can see exactly where people are getting hung up. It'll record individually everyone who comes to your site, what they do. And what you can do is say, I want to see people who are an iPhone 6 in America. And if you have the volume, it'll show you those people. Because you may have a technical problem with iPhone 6 in your code, you don't know. But when you see the sessions, you start to see why. I want to see people who are looking in my form, who are trying to sign up, who don't sign up. Let's see where they get hung up. So definitely sign up for something like Hotjar if you're dealing with any type of traffic or conversion is a consideration on your site. Google Analytics, we spoke at length about it. Usertesting.com is a great tool. It's basically, sorry, not basically, it is in fact a group of people all over the world who test websites. And you pay them around $50 US, maybe sometimes a bit more. And you send through a series of questions to a reviewer, and they have screen capture softwares at home or wherever they're working. They work remotely. And they will go through your site, answer your questions, give you feedback, talk in real time, type in real time, and then an hour later you'll have the video once they start. They'll do it, user testing renders it, you log in and you look at it. I'm actually running some tests on there right now, and it's great. It's a really great tool, and it's objective. You ask your friends and family about your site and your business, two things. They like you and love you. They're not going to be critical. And that's the kiss of death when someone's not critical. So they're not going to be critical. They're not professionals. So they might be looking at it from a layman's point of view. So you really need an objective voice and someone who's out there. And when I send in the docs to the testers, I tell them in bold, please be critical. It's important that you be critical. And the more critical you are, the better I'm going to review my experience with you as a tester. Because people want to be nice. And you don't want people who are nice. because you're going to nice your way, right to bankruptcy. You want people who are critical and they're going to tell you what's wrong and help you, as opposed to just be nice. Visual Website Optimizer, so this is an example of a tool we can use to A/B test. This is an advanced thing, so it probably won't be relevant to most, or it won't be relevant until you reach a certain scale, but you can test different versions of your site, different pages, different calls to action, different color schemes, and you can see which one does better. And this thing is an iterative, incremental process. So you get a 5% improvement on this A/B test, then you take the winner and you do it again. And just keep going on a cycle. And when we did it for clients, there was no stop. It was just a calendar of tests. And there was no end. It was just, you kept going and going and going, because there's no perfect site, there's no perfect conversion rate. It's just trying to get better and better. Optimizely is in similar vein to Visual Website Optimizer. It's a bit more of enterprise type product, but in similar vein of A/B testing and user testing. Advanced techniques, A/B split testing, so we spoke about that. Multivariate testing is even more advanced in A/B, where you're taking multiple variations of the same page. So if you have 3 elements on a page you want to test, button color, the background image, the copy, and 3 elements, that's actually 9 versions, because 3 times 3. So you're running it 9 versions of that page, and you've got 4 things, you're running 16 versions of that page. And if you have a lot of traffic, it can be worth doing. So it's a much more advanced technique, but you need the amount of traffic to support that type of test. Focus groups, lab tests, so you can do formalized tests in a room like this, but it's so expensive. And it's kind of an unnatural experience because people are coming into a lab and doing it. So that's where companies like usertesting.com have come in. They allow people to do this testing at home on their own machines, in their own environments, on their own time. So it's much more consistent with their day-to-day lifestyle, as opposed to going to a laboratory and sitting down and saying stuff of that nature. So that stuff is a bit dated, with the sense of the internet creating these opportunities for people to remotely, and dramatically cheaper and quicker. So again, with user testing, if you're talking about a large country, say Australia, and you want to use a male who's between 25 and 35 on a Mac, when you put that test up, you're going to get someone picked it up in an hour. They're going to run the test, you're going to have it back in 2 hours. So you could see the speed of iteration you can get to. You put up a call, someone picks it up on user testing, they run the test, they render the video, send it back to you in 2 hours. You may have done multiple ones, you get them back same day, you iterate, you do it again, you do it again. And it's just an iterative process. And you can move lightning fast. You can really move lightning fast. So setting up a lab and a test, it's a nightmare when you think of the cost and the logistics of getting people in the room and everything else. So user testing, just keep going and move quickly. Personalization, again, quite advanced, but if you're an e-commerce site, we've all been on major e-commerce sites where our experience is personalized based on what we bought before and what we might like, and et cetera, et cetera. So you can do those things for a larger retailer e-commerce site. It takes some management attention, some management knowledge, and some programming. So you can only do that with scale, but it's something to think about. And there we go, no questions. See how quick we got through that? I know it's towards the end of the day, but a few questions would be great.
Damien, do you have any particular thoughts on using channels and driving traffic for your website around campaigns? Makes perfect sense. Separate to that though, there's a lot of discussion around should you have a background hum on social media, or something which sort of just trickles along in the background and becomes the supportive, if you like, element to whatever campaigns you're driving on top of that. Is that a highly contextual thought?
Sorry, can you summarize it again? I didn't get the full.
So, separate to driving campaigns, you might have a campaign to onboard some new business, and you're looking at these particular channels and your website conversions and the like. Separate to campaigns, do you see a lot of value in, separate to that, having ongoing digital marketing to just create brand awareness and an underlying hum for a business?
Yeah, I mean, I do. It is a bit contextual, but I do see some value in branding, but if you're doing it, you have to make a conscious decision that that's what it's for. A lot of people do it on autopilot, or they don't think it through. So if you're doing direct transactional type marketing, email, paid search, retargeting, which are more bottom of the funnel, getting the sale, getting the lead. And if you're doing top of the funnel stuff, and you're either just on a human level saying, how did you hear about me? Oh, I saw your ad on this branding marketing platform or this branding marketing way. You say, okay, I see some value coming back. And again, in analytics, you can do some multi-attribution things, quite simple, and see how many people saw this versus how many people converted. So there's something called an assisted conversion, and there's something Google AdWords called view through. So you can see people who viewed the ad but didn't click it, if they can track it, and then people who converted. And things like in Facebook, you can see people who saw the ad but converted in a different way or more direct later. So the answer is I do see value in it. And if you understand it's for branding and awareness, and you're using a human eye to ask people to have your own judgment as a business owner, as well as using some of the other tools to meet you halfway, to say, okay, there's some value in these assisted conversions, in these views that you've had, then yes, there's value in it. Does that answer it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll stay around for a bit, and I'll give anyone who wants my card, and we can talk about stuff offline as you think it through and grow your businesses.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Damien. Like I said, it's a heavy part of the day, and how cool was that? So this is where you really need this level of detail in order to take things to another level. And it's deep, you know, it's detail stuff, and credit to you guys for giving you full attention. So he obviously is pretty good, knows his stuff. So we would have, if we hadn't had him here today, we would have gone tomorrow to Jenny's Cafe to watch you anyway. But twice would be too much of a treat for us, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
So Damien's very generous offer to catch up with you guys. I would recommend that you take him up on that and take some time to have a bit of a chat. And, you know, you don't know how, in which way he can support you outside of just what you're asking in this room, so please do that. So thanks again. Cool. All right, so we're finishing. You guys are blessed because we're finishing early tonight, so you get to have a bit of a brain break. We are back in here. You've got yoga in the morning. We're back in here tomorrow. As I said, we've got Andrew Eggleton coming in first up for half a day, and you guys are absolutely going to love his session. It's fun, and even if you don't like a video camera, you'll learn to love it with Andrew. And then Donna in the afternoon. So fun day tomorrow. So enjoy your evening, and we'll connect with you soon. Thank you.